So yeah, this is Lois back with the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Wahoo! And let's continue our adventure. We're at this crazy wax museum, if I remember. The stolen waxwork. Tell us more about the stolen waxwork, please.
It was some days ago now, when I came here one morning. I immediately noticed that there was a waxwork missing from the special exhibit here. It is your most prominent display, so that's why the curtains were closed. Now I found the ransom note in its place.
The couple must have broken in during the night and taken it then.
So this waxwork that was stolen was a model of some horrible criminal, I suppose. Of a particularly horrible criminal, in fact. The killer who left a more profound scar on society than any other, I would say. The Professor.
Not a name I've heard of. So, Mr. Naruhodo, it seems the circle is complete. Sorry?
The Professor case happened around the time I was born, didn't it?
Indeed it did, Iris. 10 years ago, a series of murders that rocked the capital. 10 years ago? Yes, at exactly the time that Baruch van Zieks graduated from university, in fact.
What? Surely he's not saying... so, the big event that changed Mr. Reaper's life.
As you surmised, it was a professor case.
Who was this professor, then?
Whoa.
It was a series of gruesome murders that had all of London gripped in terror a decade ago. After 5 victims were killed, the man was arrested and put to death.
And now he's immortalized here, in wax for all the Londoners to admire and enjoy. Though, of course, he happens to be absent at present on the account of the abduction. But I don't understand. How is this all related to Lord Van Zieks? You must first understand, my dear fellow, why it is that the professor earned such infamy. It was due to the victims he chose, some of Whitehall's finest.
What do you mean, Hurley?
Those murdered by the professor were some of the highest members of the British aristocracy. Members of the nobility, even royalty. It sent shockwaves through the country's administration. Members of the... wait, of course! What Professor Harebrained said. Lord Van Zieks is from a family with noble blood.
Oh, gosh!
It was the 5th victim that led to the professor's arrest. The last of the killer's prey was the young noble by the name of... Clint Van Zieks.
No! I don't believe it. Van Zieks?
I'm sure you can piece together the rest for yourself. In the wake of his older brother's murder, the young Baruch pursued a career as a prosecutor, and eventually became the Reaper we know today. Dang. I had no idea Lord Van Zieks had such a tragic past. Well, I'm afraid that's all I can say on the matter. For the time being, at least. After all, I have work to do. As a waxwork exhibit.
I'm afraid I have to excuse myself as well.
Oh, yes, of course. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Just had the most surreal Switch experience. Dead docked. So I switched the socket plug and kept turning on after I turned it off. And then I talked and put it back into the screen to switch and play it off. I think that Switch needs to go see the doctor. Well, none of the predicted scenarios I've been analyzing involved you coming to visit me here. The first haunted Switch.
It's been too long, it really has. I'm delighted to see you, Barrick.
It's been 10 years, and here we are, Meeting in a prison of all places.
I can't forgive myself for what happened to Miss Asmund. I just can't. I still can't believe it could happen.
Tomorrow, the court will decide.
Yes. I have a young Eastern man acting for my defense. He seems reliable enough, though. It was an accident, a terrible accident. He assures me he can prove it.
I'm having trouble doing a British voice and a nerdy voice at the same time. I must warn you.
Oh, I know. I've heard already. You're going to be prosecuting, aren't you?
Yes.
Since I returned to England, I've heard lots of stories. Barak, are you really?
What?
Never mind. I know you have my best interests at heart.
My friend is on trial. I wouldn't entrust it to anybody else.
Of course, I fully understand. Thank you, Barak.
Just Galeo, hello. What's up? Until tomorrow, then. I'll see you in court.
How's it going?
To be continued. Alrighty. 23rd October, 8:52 a.m. The Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber.
I can't believe it's been 6 months since I was last allowed to work in court. And now, here I am, back at the Old Bailey. Mr. Naruhodo.
Good morning, Professor Hairbrain.
I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. The atmospheric pressure in here is off the charts. I've never felt anything like it. It's crushing me.
I feel it every time I'm here. That gravity. What was the harm that happened again? Someone got electrocuted? Oh yeah, so the scientist guy, he like made a teleporter basically, and then he's like, look, let me try it right now on this one dude, and then it like all exploded, and then he's being on trial for that guy being dead basically. But we don't really know the details of like what happened necessarily yet. So I guess we're gonna find that out in court. Like, I think they found like pieces of his clothes and cloths like across the way to the tower that he was supposed to be teleported to. But yeah, how am I doing? I'm doing good. I'm feeling happy today. I'm in a pretty good mood, so I'm also glad that I was able to fit in a stream today, so that's exciting.
Well, this is Britain's highest court. But you're telling me it's fitted with some kind of device that can actually control air pressure?
I think it's probably all in the mind.
Yes, well, you won't let me down, will you, Mr. Naruhodo? I'm counting on you in today's trial to save my life.
Yeah, let's go. That's so exciting. I'm glad you're excited too. I'm happy that you are happy. Aw, thanks. Yeah, I'm feeling good today.
To save the secret of my super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine from being made public.
Yes, I understand. I know what I have to do. I have to establish that the explosion 2 days ago was nothing more than an unfortunate accident.
Well, I'm sure there's nothing to worry about, really. Justice will prevail.
My commiserations, Mr. Naruhodo. You appear to have been lumbered with a most tiresome case here. I don't know who's talking. Oh, it's you. Mr. Sholmes, I didn't expect to see you here.
That was very mean, Runo. Leave me alone at home with Hurley. It took me at least an hour to wake him. Is it... Are you... Herlock Sholmes?
Indeed, sir. I am he. Herlock Sholmes.
I've heard all about your exploits, even whilst living in Germany. Ah, yes. Rand's magazine is on sale in Germany too. This month's installment was sublime. Your deduction in The Adventure of Silver Blaze was wonderful.
Ah, yes. A memorable case indeed. It concerned a snake, I seem to recall.
No, that was the speckled band.
Well, thank you for coming. I do appreciate your support. I'm sorry to disappoint you, my dear fellow, but I'm afraid I can't stay. Oh. I have urgent business at Madame Tuspel's. You mean your waxwork job? No, the waxwork abduction, of course. Madame has engaged my services. Ah, so you're trying to get to the bottom of that ransom note, are you? This week's wages depend on it, as does the safe return of the waxwork, naturally. As such, I intend to give it my undivided attention. Oh, well, never mind then. I understand. Of course, with my skills of observation and reasoning, resolving the matter will be as easy as proverbial pie. I shall return forthwith. For until I solve the case, I shall have no money to afford that pie of any description.
Oh, then you must absolutely give it your full attention, Harley.
Quite, Iris, quite. But life is riddled with irony, you know. Whenever I give something my full attention, I have a quite insatiable desire for a pie. One of the universe's intractable mysteries, you might say.
Oh yes, quite. Definitely, absolutely. I totally understand.
Is someone a little starstruck? Wish you the very best of luck, Professor Harebrain.
Oh, I thank you.
Before I depart, Mr. Naruhodo, a word in your ear, if you please. What's this about? As you have remarkably little grounding in science, I feel I ought to inform you. As compelling as this super high voltage, instantaneous kinesis hypothesis may be, practical implementation, such as was attempted by the professor at the Great Exhibition, is quite impossible.
But the professor said the demonstration was a success.
Yes, it would appear that he fervently believes it was.
I've read Professor Bunnybrain's paper about it too, Runo, and I have to say, I'm sure it can't be done. It could barely be done theoretically, let alone practically.
So he's completely barking up the wrong tree. But how can an experiment like that have no possibility of succeeding and in fact succeed? That's contradictory. It is that contradiction that will be at the heart of the trial, I've no doubt. What's that supposed to mean? Now, I must hurry along. I wish you the best of luck, my dear fellow.
See you later, Holly. Well, it looks like you're on your own today, Runo. But chin up, you can do it.
Oh, what about you, Iris?
Ah, no, I'm afraid I can't help. I have something I need to do.
I see.
It's going to be a big surprise for you when you find out what it is.
That sounds ominous. Counsel for the defense and the defendant. Court is about to be in session. Make your way into the courtroom at once. We're on our way. Alright, let's get to the bottom of this. An experiment that the laws of science can't possibly succeed. And a scientist who's convinced that it did. That's the riddle you have to unlock here, Ryunosuke. That's the key to this case. October 23rd, 9:10 a.m. The Old Bailey courtroom. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. We are sitting today for the public trial of Professor Albert Harebrain. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is ready. The defense is ready, my lord. I'm 6 months out of practice, and what's more, I'm without Susato-san today. Is it just my imagination, or does the air in here feel even more oppressive than usual? So, I must say I recollect the victim of this case all too well, Mr. O.D. Osmond. Mr. Osmond was well known as a financier, though that was merely a front for his diverse criminal activities.
It's only a month ago that the man appeared in court prosecuted by you, Lord Van Zieks. The jury unanimously found him not guilty.
Because every member of the jury had been bribed, by the sound of it. These powerful London criminals are prepared to go to extreme lengths to keep their freedom.
But 2 days ago, on the 21st October, Mr. Osmond met his end. The work of the Reaper, was it? If that is how your lordship would describe divine retribution. But the fact remains that Mr. Osmond's death was a direct result of the actions of the accused, Professor Harebrain. Very well, then. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have been selected at random to represent the will of the people. Are you 6 of you ready to fulfill your societal duty? I am most gratified to have been selected to carry out this important civic duty, my lord.
To have a man's fate in the palm of one's hand. Oh gosh, oh golly, it sends shivers down my spine. Science experiments, magic, conjuring tricks, courtroom trials, all are nothing more than performances.
Any suspicious scholar that defiles the reputation of science deserves to hang.
We have to listen to what's said on both sides of the fence and then settle on one. That's it, isn't it?
It wasn't like this in my day. It wasn't like this at all.
That's... The police killer Automole look-alike. Again. And he's exhausted as ever, it seems.
Now, as I'm sure you're all aware, the incident we are here to judge today tragically took place at the Great Exhibition shortly after its opening. Though the death toll could have been far worse, with the exception of the victim, no one was killed. Nevertheless, the dream of the science being exhibited rapidly turned into a nightmare for the spectators. A tragic turn of events, and as such, the eyes of all London, no, of the whole world will be on this trial. It is our duty to reach a swift and just conclusion, I feel. So, your opening statement, please, Lord Van Zieks. At the heart of this incident is technology never before demonstrated anywhere in the world. One of science's latest developments, I take it. The government is keen to capitalize on the Great Exhibition to improve Britain's technological advantage. The technology being demonstrated by the accused was described as super high voltage instantaneous kinesis. Good lord!
It's designed to disassemble human subjects using extremely high voltage electricity and beam them instantly to another location where they are subsequently reassembled.
Is such a thing even within the realms of possibility? I don't believe it, that's for sure.
Disassembling people with electricity, my goodness, how shocking.
Oh, the whole idea was absurd. The hypothesis will never stand up to scrutiny. Sir, I believe you are a fellow of the Royal Society, are you not? An expert in your field? I am, and my word on the matter can be considered final. Instantaneous kinesis is poppycock.
So this expert and Mr. Sholmes are in agreement. It's impossible.
What is the prosecution's view on the matter? The prosecution would assert that the accused's instantaneous kinesis demonstration was a success. What? What rot?
Well, he thinks it's real? That's crazy.
Order! Order! The professor's hypothesis is currently under investigation by the British government. If it is deemed to have merit, a substantial research grant will be made available. The accused made the use of the invention built on his new hypothesis to take Mr. Osmond's life, in order to be the sole benefactor of the grant.
But...
This disastrous demonstration was no accident. It was carefully designed from the outset to end the life of the victim. Thank you, Lord Van Zieks. The prosecution's stance is clear. But you will now bring forth witnesses to substantiate your claims. Gladly, my lord. Bailiff, show the first witnesses to the stand.
This is so dramatic. Oh man.
Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court. Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector, Scotland Yard's Homicide Division. I was on duty at the demonstration on the day in question and was in charge of following an investigation.
I'm a Terbrate, scientist.
You were born in England, but have been carrying out research in Germany in recent years, correct?
Yes, that's right. After graduating from university here in Britain, I went to work in Germany and made an amazing discovery, which is what brought me back. I had to demonstrate my incredible hypothesis at the Great Exhibition.
What you demonstrated was incredible, right? An incredible explosion.
But the science was a success. The instantaneous kinesis worked. Everyone saw it. They must have done. Yes, there was the terrible accident, but the demonstration of my hypothesis was a success.
Well, that much is undeniable, as shown as his photograph taken by the forensic investigation team. This was taken inside the Crystal Tower, I take it. The centerpiece of the exhibition, no less. That's right, my lord. It seems the victim rammed straight into it.
Just catapulted him straight into the thing. Dang.
I see. Very well. Submit the photograph as evidence.
Photograph of the victim. A photographic print of the victim taken after he had ostensibly, sorry, my brain, ostensibly been beamed into the Crystal Tower. It shows an apparent stab wound to the chest. Okay, let's take a look at that really quick. Okay, so just the photo, and then we can see it's right on his left side.
As the courts heard, the victim of the incident was Mr. Odie Asman. There have been a number of allegations made against the man, but putting them aside for the time being.
His advice was just too good, suffering from success.
He was a man who financed the research for the experiment and the demonstration itself. I see. So to summarize the situation, the defendant is accused of taking the life of the man who funded his work. Would that be correct? Exactly.
But couldn't it be that the explosion was caused by some malfunction in the apparatus used for the demonstration?
That's right. That must be it. My splendid machine. My poor, splendid machine.
You saw it yesterday, didn't you? We can't even examine the wreckage thanks to the special dispensation for the Scientific Equipment Act.
What? The wreckage? The wreckage!
But that being the case, how can the facts be established? How can it possibly be determined whether this was an accident or deliberate and malicious act? Extremely simply, my lord. I beg your pardon? Isn't that right, witness?
Sorry, me?
No, your neighbour. Yes, sir. It was murder, plain and simple. Anyone could say that with complete certainty.
What? How can he possibly think that?
Thank you, Inspector. I think we had better proceed to a formal testimony. You explain to the court on what grounds you claim this experiment to have been a front for murder.
A front for murder.
The corpse that went crashing through the Crystal Tower had a broken neck.
I made a minor miscalculation in the angle of the beam projection, that's all. That was my mistake.
But the post-mortem examination revealed another injury, a fatal wound. There was a lesion in his chest, where he'd clearly been stabbed by something sharp right in the heart. So the victim was killed before he went anywhere, and this fellow is the only one who could have done it.
Interesting.
An extraordinary business. In addition to suffering a broken neck, the victim was stabbed in the heart.
Information I really would have liked heard from someone other than the judge.
The coroner says the death would have been all but instant from a wound like that. You could say, in fact, that the victim was killed twice by the accused.
No. That can be further from the truth.
I've here the experiment plan document that was submitted to the security team. The victim stood himself inside something called the bird cage, ready to be beamed instantly.
Like the little animation.
To the second level of the crystal tower, about 25 yards away. The experiment did not go according to plan, however. As the machine was put into operation, there was a large explosion. The blast caused the beam transmitter to point higher than intended.
Oh jeez.
Accordingly, the kinesis resulted in the birdcage materializing in midair, from where it subsequently fell, crashing through the glass of the crystal tower's large round window.
Wow, that's crazy.
My word! One assumes the victim's neck was broken upon impact with the tower then.
No, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. The machine was just too powerful. But honestly, really, I swear, it was just an accident. A terrible accident.
Unfortunately, that excuse can't save you. No, not considering the sharp murder weapon that pierced the victim's heart.
Murder weapon? What are you saying?
This is the autopsy report submitted by the coroner. The prosecution would like it entered into the court record. Your request is granted, counsel.
Autopsy report. The autopsy report of the victim, Mr. Asman. His neck was broken from the impact of a violent fall he was stabbed in the chest with a sharp object. Dang.
I was there in person, you know. I saw the whole ludicrous performance.
Alright, let's check our evidence here. Autopsy report. Coroner Courtney Scythe. Details of victim. Mr. Odie Asman, male, 47, nationality British, time of death 21st October around 2:20 p.m. Cause of death: hemorrhage of a wound to the chest that pierced the heart, inflicted by a sharp implement. Additional observations: a broken vertebra, most likely resulting from impact after a sudden fall from a considerable height. So he died from the stab wound, not the fall.
And the only other person on stage which Mr. Osmond was a disgraceful excuse for of a scientist.
Then really, by all accounts, it must have been him.
Hard to think otherwise, really. Very well, counsel for the defense. Proceed with the cross-examination, please.
Oh, yes, my lord. I need to focus here. It's been a while. It has been a while, Ryunosuke. We're on the same page. Affront for murder.
Of course, someone crashed into the crystal tower had a broken neck.
Are you suggesting that's because he fell from a considerable height?
Exactly, which highlights something else about this whole rum business.
What's that?
The fact that the instantaneous kinesis itself was a success. Ugh. After the explosion, the cage with the fella inside suddenly appeared out of nowhere in midair. So, although the experiment ended in disaster, the so-called instantaneous kinesis did actually occur. Remind us, Professor. What was the cause of the fatal disaster?
So the angle of projection is critical, is it? And you calculated it yourself? Personally?
Absolutely. A calculation is too far complicated for anyone but me to carry out.
Only, you got it wrong, didn't you?
Yes, that's right. That's the point. The calculator is so complicated, even I can make a mistake.
Do people fall for that brazen confidence? I should try it.
I took into account the subject's height and weight, the wind direction, the ambient temperature. I considered every possible variable, so I just don't understand how this could have happened.
Obviously, then, you had to include the weight of the clothes Mr. Asman was wearing at the time, I suppose.
Crackling comments. The answer should have been 3.
So much for safety first. The 3 must be for safety third. Fatal wound injury. Another fatal injury, you say? That doesn't make any sense.
I didn't think I'd have to spell this out, but here we go. Just because there were 2 fatal wounds doesn't mean I'm saying the victim had 2 lives to lose, does it?
2, right.
Obviously, at first, we thought the bloke had died due to the spine snapping in half as well.
But you're saying that's not the case?
He'll get your answer once I finish my fish and chips. We don't keep butting in every few seconds.
We all know that's a bottomless bag. It's true.
The victim plummeted 30 feet into a glass tower. It would be reasonable to assume that as the cause of death. Right, that's what we all thought, but it was a red herring, wasn't it? There was a legion in his chest.
The defense knew nothing of this crucial information.
The prosecution received this report from the forensic investigation team only this morning. That was the first we knew of it as well. I can only apologize for the impossibility of informing the defense.
Sarcastic and insincere? Thanks. So, what was the nature of this sharp object?
Among the accused tools that were in use at the demonstration, one is of particular interest. This. Ah, yes, that would appear to be some kind of screwdriver, wouldn't it, Count?
There he is! My trusted little companion, Andrew.
Andrew. Of course.
Do you know each other already? He's one of my dear friends, like all my tools. I've named them all, you know. We're one big happy family. Andrew is my flathead screwdriver, of course. His brother Michael is a crosshead.
Well, it would appear that your beloved Andrew has a red stain on his shank.
That isn't...
It's blood, beyond all reasonable doubt.
No.
That's not all. The long, sharp shape of this Andrew fellow is completely consistent with the victim's wound.
What?
Order! Order! The court will enter this friend of the defendant as evidence.
Screwdriver. Professor Harebrain's trusty screwdriver that he's named Andrew. There are traces of blood at the tip, and it matches the shape of the victim's wound. Alright. Take a look at this bad boy. This is blood. Mr. Asmus, no doubt. This is a problem with looking at murder weapons. I've seen this unusually shaped handle before. It's the same screwdriver that was lodged in the grill on the floor of the kinesis machine, which could be important information, so I should definitely make a note of it. A metal screwdriver is found poking through the grill in the base of what remains of the kinesis machine. It has a very distinctive handle. Interesting. Anything else special about this? Not really. Not really, I guess. Okay. So, one of Professor Harebrain's tools is a murder weapon. Great. He's the only one who could have done it. What grounds do you have for saying that?
Do you really need to ask? There are only two people on that public experimentation stage in front of a whole crowd. The victim, Mr. O.D. Osman, and the accused, Professor Harebrain. And we know for certain that before the experiment, the victim was alive. That's right, I saw him with my own eyes. Furthermore, following the explosion in kinesis, nobody went anywhere near the body. In other words, only someone else on stage with the victim could have possibly done it.
Professor Harebrain, do you have some information that may be relevant here? Professor!
Sorry. I was just calculating the optimum coefficient of electrosis.
Electrosis? I guess that's right. To separate molecules in the human body. And the witness stand is the best place for that. It seemed as though you might have something to say about Inspector Gregson's last remark.
Yes, that's right, of course. He just said that nobody else could have done it, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Who else could have stabbed the victim there?
I don't know, but there's no way that I could have possibly stabbed Mr. Asman as you say.
Explain, please, Professor.
Of course, this cold-hearted policeman may not be aware, I suppose. But humans are warm-blooded animals, with blood running continuously through their veins.
I had heard.
Then surely, you see, if I plunged something into the size of Andrew's into the man's chest, the whole stage would have been a bloodbath. No, a blood swimming pool. But thousands of Londoners were watching me at the time, and yet not one of them claims to have seen a swimming pool of blood.
Well, no, I suppose not.
You see? Not one.
True, I didn't see anything like that.
Well done, Professor. That was a great counter-argument.
Order, order! Pray forgive the discourtesy if I savour a drop from my hallowed chalice to accompany my old friend's adducing. Here's to you, Albert.
You're too kind, Barak. But I'm really not a patch on you.
No, you're not.
No?
You've neglected to mention one crucial possibility.
I have?
A particular situation in which very little bleeding would result from a stab wound.
Of course.
Inspector, enlighten the court, please.
Yes, sir. Where are they going with this?
Very well. You will amend your formal testimony now, Inspector Gregson.
The weapon on the victim was stabbed. The weapon the victim was stabbed with must have been left in his body whilst he was being beamed through the air. Oh, why do you think that, Inspector?
With any wound, it's only been when you pull the weapon out that profuse bleeding occurs. Whilst it's still lodged in the body, it acts as a stopper of sorts, for want of a better word.
I see.
You don't need a medical degree to be aware of this fact. It's common knowledge for any investigator.
Where's Suzette the Sun when you need her?
If you ask me, this bloke, that's what he was doing from view with his body before stabbing Asmund in the chest. Then he beamed the victim off the stage with his fancy device. The screwdriver was still where he planted it.
I would never do such a thing. What are my precious tools? I would never use them for such dirty work. You should only use tools for their intended purpose. That's common knowledge for any scientist.
The fact remains. The lack of blood at the scene can easily be explained, as the prosecution has demonstrated.
So that's all the testimony I have to work with. I had no idea the victim had been stabbed. That changes everything. Did Van Zieks keep them to himself until now on purpose? To gain the advantage? Oh well, I suppose all I can do is press these witnesses for as much new information as possible. I mean, I did everything, right? Must have been left in his body whilst he was beamed through the air. What can I present here? Grill on the base of what remains of the kinesis machine. So it was found at the kinesis machine, right? So then it's not possible for it to have been in his body. You say that while the weapon remains in the body, there's very little bleeding. Is that unequivocal?
Look, there's no blood on the experimentation stage, even though that's where the fellow was stabbed. The only explanation for that is if the screwdriver was still in this body, stopping any heavy bleeding. It's common medical knowledge, my learned friend. Even on your side of the world.
Yes, but about the screwdriver. The thing is, we actually saw it at the scene ourselves, on the experimentation stage.
What?
It was on the floor or by the wreckage of the machine, poking through a metal grill. I went to pick it up, but the detective here stopped me. Isn't that right, Inspector Gregson?
Oh, well, now you come to mention it, yes. Inspector, are we to understand that you permitted the defense counsel to investigate? That you contravened the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act? No, not at all. I wouldn't do that. I just let him live, nothing more. It was very clear that he wasn't to touch a thing. Yes, that's true. The screwdriver was in plain sight on the stage. But it shouldn't have been, should it? What are you getting at? If this tool had still been in the victim's body when the victim was beamed away by the machine, then it shouldn't have still been on the stage. That's right. It should have been beamed across the Crystal Tower along with Mr. Asman, and been found still lodged in the victim's chest. Order! Order! How do you explain this, Inspector? I don't. It looks as though everything that the victim had on his person moved with him when he was beamed. If the screwdriver was still in his chest when the instantaneous kinesis occurred, obviously, that should have been beamed to the destination as well. Someone takes away his chips, he's making a mess. He keeps smushing them, poor potatoes. This is a strange situation. Even though people are saying that this instantaneous kinesis is a scientific impossibility, we're still basing arguments on the assumption that it did actually take place. Alright, time to tighten the screws here. My lord, if the prosecution is unable to explain this inconsistency in its argument, we can only conclude that the testimony given in support cannot be relied upon. Lord Deeks is stumped. Who said that? Oh, him. Do you have something to say, witness?
Yes, I knew it. It bears out the equation told... Mr. Naruhodo, don't worry.
About what?
Without delving into the details, there's no inconsistency.
What?
Even if Andrew had been lodged in Mr. Asman's chest, my trusty tool wouldn't have moved. Andrew remaining on the stage is consistent with my calculations.
What? This guy's crazy. Goodbye, wine. It would seem your illusions have been shattered. Clearly, we should hear the accused's explanation. Or should I say, this brilliant scientist's explanation. Just when I'd found an inconsistency in the prosecution's argument. Scientists. Very well. The defendant will testify again. Provides with the scientific explanation as to why the inconsistency asserted by the defense fails to hold.
In the name of Apollo, I will, my lord.
The inconsistency explained.
To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering data in my research. My hypothesis states that the kinesis cannot transport metal, though, hence the metal weapon would have stayed put. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruhodo isn't an inconsistency at all. Mr. Asman was the patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible. Now I have the duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together.
Like, I was testifying against himself. It's kind of hilarious. So, the thrust of your testimony, Professor, is that based upon his hypothesis, metal objects cannot be moved by this method of instantaneous kinesis. In other words, since the screwdriver is made of metal, even if it remained lodged in the victim's chest, its subsequent discovery on the stage despite the victim being found elsewhere is not an inconsistency. And therefore, Professor Albert Harebrained could still have been the killer.
Oh, my great hypothesis holds, you see. We had to make the cage you used to contain the subject from wood for that very reason. I was not addressing you, witness.
Professor Harebrained?
Yes?
Whose side are you on here?
I don't take sides, Mr. Naruhodo. No. My only interest lies upon upholding my hypothesis. I'm a scientist, after all.
Is he working for us or against us? It's very hard to tell.
Let's see how you cross-examine this testimony, my Nipponese friend.
Yes, fire away, Mr. Naruhodo.
Still gathering data. And yet your retort to my argument wasn't lacking in confidence in any way.
No scientist can find the truth without first finding self-belief. Those were the words of a certain scientist I hold in the very highest esteem.
But you realize that disproving my argument puts you in a very precarious position, don't you?
No scientist should strive to protect himself more than he strives to protect the truth. More words of the same great scientist, you know?
Words that are causing me a lot of trouble. Who is this scientist?
I'm afraid I couldn't tell you, Mr. Naruhodo. But as soon as I remember the magnificent genius's name, you'll be the first to know.
It might be worth keeping the names of your idols to mind.
You're wasting your breath, my learned friend. The scatterbrain even forgets my name at times.
So Lord Van Zeeks really did have a friend once. But I didn't notice hell freezing over. My hypothesis states that the kinesis cannot transport metal, though. Oops. Your hypothesis states it? So this isn't proven then?
No, of course not. It's merely a hypothesis, but a good one, based upon thousands of calculations. But it is widely known that metals can be decomposed by I can't read words, sorry.
Electrolysis.
Yes, of course, so I am right. My hypothesis is clearly correct.
What is it about incriminating himself that makes this man so happy?
It's the whole reason that the birdcage is made of wood, you see.
Sorry, the birdcage?
Yes, that's what I call the obtuse cage in which Mr. Asmund was placed for the kinesis.
Ah, the jail cell in which the victim was detained. It does indeed seem to be made of a timber of some sort.
I'll thank you not to refer it as an instrument of incarceration, your lordship.
In short, any weapon lodged in the victim when he was beamed away by instantaneous kinesis would have been left behind on stage if it was made of metal, correct?
Yes, that's it. Yes. It all fits perfectly within the mathematical model.
But the ultimate conclusion, then, is that the defendant alone had the opportunity to inflict this fatal injury on the victim, is it not? Ah, indeed, sir.
Someone beat me out of this nightmare. Isn't an inconsistency at all. You seem to be pleased by that.
Yes, another example of my hypothesis holding true.
I sense some sarcasm, Mr. Naruhodo. Are you not pleased? No.
I knew it. At the end of the day, I'm the one responsible for Mr. Asmund losing his life. The advancement of science is no excuse. I know that.
No, you're quite right.
Tell the court, do you have a close relationship with Mr. Asmund?
Oh, well, no, not really. I mean, I only met him 2 or 3 times.
I've only ever discussed my hypothesis in the project, and the research grant, of course.
Mr. Asmund was a patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible. If you forgot to calculate the weight of the clothes, maybe there was metal on his clothes somewhere. I agree. I was thinking about that because right before you said that, I was like, wouldn't there be metal on his like monocle or something? How did you come to know Mr. Asmund in the first place?
A year ago now, a small provincial science journal published a little paper about my work. Oh, look at that tiny book.
That's a scientific journal. Good gracious! I should need new spectacles.
I might have an extraordinary hypothesis and a great promise, but at the time I had no money. I had to eat tiny little meals at a tiny little cafe and drink watered-down water out of a tiny little glass. But Mr. Asmund read the paper and came to visit me at my tiny little laboratory.
And offered you money to help fund your work.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. I handled the theoretical side of things, and Mr. Asmund provided me with an engineer for the practical. And the three of us produced that fantastic machine together.
The machine that you brought to the great exhibition to demonstrate.
We had to apply to the government for some sort of inspection to be allowed to exhibit, I think. I didn't understand that side of things. Mr. Asmund took care of all of it. He was a wonderful man. Really, I owe him everything.
Oop. That's the extent of the testimony then. Thank goodness for that. I don't want him to do any more damage. He's already been basically proven that he could have been the culprit. But it seems as though all he really cares about is defending his hypothesis. Still, I wonder, what if his hypothesis is just fundamentally flawed? I think we're on the right track here. When you say that you built the machine together, does that mean you're involved in its construction?
Yes. Well, not exactly. I'm not good with the practical side of machines myself. So the physical construction was done by an engineer.
Little remains of your creation now, though. Following the explosion, repair will no doubt be impossible.
Yes, I realize that, but still. If someone were to gather all the broken parts, they could discover the secret of my hypothesis. But Mr. Asmund and I toiled over that machine for so long, we put our hearts and souls into it. I had to protect our work. So that's what left of the machine. So what's left of the machine must be kept safe. That's only fair, because of what happened was an accident.
Okay. So we can skip this much. Okay, so let's see. Let's take a look at this picture. Yeah, because isn't this like considered metal? It has to be, right? Cannot transport metal. Then we want to present this, right? Professor Harebrain, you said that according to your hypothesis, nothing made of metal can be beamed by instantaneous kinesis using the machine you made. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. It's spot on. Exactly correct.
In that case, I'd ask you to have a look at this photograph that was taken at the scene. In particular, I'd like you to pay attention to the victim's face. You can clearly see that Mr. Asmund is wearing a pair of spectacles with a metal rim.
What? Metal? No, metal can't. That's not metal. No.
We've already established that the proposed murder weapon, the screwdriver, was found on the stage. However, if your hypothesis correctly predicted that outcome, it should have also predicted that the metal rim spectacles would be found in the same place.
Ah, my hypothesis! My hypothesis!
Professor Harebrain, this isn't easy for me to say, but your hypothesis is clearly flawed.
Ah.
Order! 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 Counsel, what is the implication of this?
If, on the day in question, the alleged instantaneous kinesis never actually took place, then it's entirely possible that the victim was killed somewhere other than the stage. And in that case, someone other than the defendant could have been the culprit.
But my hypothesis is sound. I proved it that day. The experiment was a success. The experiment was proof of all my work.
If I could say something here, my capacity as a fellow of the Royal Society. Yes, juror number 4. Go ahead. As a man of science, there's one thing I simply cannot abide. And that's a fraud who pretends to be a fellow man of science.
What? Wait, great Scott! Are you suggesting my science is suspect?
It's just been disproved, hasn't it? In front of all of us. In other words, the whole demonstration was complete nonsense from start to finish. Believe me, my fellow jurors, when I tell you that this man is here, a bounder and a fraud. I say the wreckage of that machine should be stripped down and thoroughly examined.
No, never. That machine is the essence of my entire hypothesis. It's protected by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act.
What the devil is that blasted actor about, eh? Who made up such a daft room?
I don't like the way this seems to be going. What's the best way for me to help the professor? I mean, reason of rejection, I guess? Professor Harebrain has yet to perfect his invention. That would seem to be the case, yes. But even so.
Even so, what?
Going to such trouble and expense to create a fake machine to display in public. He would have absolutely no reason to do such a thing.
He had an obvious reason to do exactly that. For the research grant money. The government was foolish enough to have deemed this man's ridiculous notion plausible. He and his conspirators would have received a handsome sum indeed.
Conspirators? What would be the value of such a grant? £10?
You're on an order of magnitude out, madam. £500 a year.
Oh, you can live handsome on that much for years.
I forgot what voice I gave that character.
The Society noticed an increase of bogus public demonstrations in the field of science recently, and plenty of scientists arguing with each other to get the largest slice of the funding cake. People's greed is a plenty motive enough for murder, I assure you.
No. I haven't deceived anyone, least of all the government. My hypothesis is sound. The science is sound. Please, you must believe me.
No matter how unbelievable this hypothesis may seem to you, ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that the victim was transported instantly to the Crystal Tower. Which means that the experiment was a success.
Ah, Barak.
And therefore, the only person who could have possibly committed this murder is the accused.
Berg. Where is this heading? I have no idea.
My lord, if I may. Yes, Lord Van Zieks? The prosecution would like to summon new witnesses to the stand. New witnesses? What would be the nature of their involvement? They were spectators of the demonstration at the exhibition, who were occupying special seats.
Eyewitnesses?
Very well, the court grants the prosecution's request. I should very much like to hear the eyewitnesses to the incident. The prosecution's stance is clear. This experiment was no pastiche. Pastiche? The accused killed the financier victim there on this public stage before the very eyes of the spectators. Now, my learned friend.
Oh, yes.
It's time for you to make your own stance clear.
There's clearly a flaw in the professor's hypothesis. I can definitely see that. But where does that leave me?
We shall take a short recess now, during which time the prosecution will prepare its new witnesses to take the stand. As you wish, my lord. Good. In that case, court is adjourned for 20 minutes.
Oh boy. To be continued. All right.